Chapter 12, Blades Behind Smiles. Morning didn't arrive all at once. It seeped in, a slow thinning of darkness between the trees, mist turning from iron gray to pale silver. The last coals of the fire breathed softly, their warmth fading in quiet pulses as the camp began to wake in fragments. One horse shifting, one tent flap stirring, one man coughing into his sleeve like the sound might wake the world. Rose hadn't truly slept, not the way other people seemed to. She'd closed her eyes. She'd let her shoulders loosen, but the ground never went silent. And her body had learned long ago that silence could be a trick. Still, there was something different now. Darius's words from the night before sat in her chest like an unfamiliar weight. "You do now." She pressed her toes into the soil and listened. The earth answered with rhythms she was starting to recognize without effort. Alaric, easy movement near the horses, laughter already leaking into his stride like he couldn't help it. Darius, steady, measured. Writing stopped. Packing began. And Kael, sharp, controlled, not pacing now, approaching. Rose opened her eyes before his shadow reached the edge of the embers. She didn't look up right away. She didn't need to. "You're awake," Kael said. His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It carried the way polished steel carried, smooth, cold, unmistakably present. Rose brushed ash from her fingers.
"So are you?"
A pause. Kael stepped closer, stopping where the firelight could reach him without fully warming his face. The mist clung to his cloak, beading along the edges like dew on a blade. He looked different without the full weight of armor, leaner, lighter, more approachable. Which was, Rose suspected, the point. "Old habits," he said mildly. "After battle, sleep becomes a rumor." Rose's mouth twitched faintly.
"Some rumors are safer than truth."
Kael's gaze flicked to her eyes, like he expected them to betray something. They didn't, not yet. He studied her a heartbeat longer than politeness required. Then, with the careful ease of someone who always knew where to place his words, he said, "You did well yesterday." Rose blinked once. It would have been easier if he'd been cruel. Cruelty was simple. Cruelty didn't pretend.
"I helped," she said quietly.
Kael's mouth curved just slightly. "You did more than help. You turned an ambush into an advantage." And afterward, his gaze drifted toward the tents, where men still slept heavy and undisturbed. "You treated the wounded like they were yours." The same line Darius had used, the same truth. Rose didn't answer. Not because she didn't have one. Because she was still learning what to do with being seen. Kael crouched, not too close, not too far. The movement was deliberate, human enough to seem respectful, calculated enough to make Rose's skin tighten beneath her cloak. "I won't pretend I understand you," he said. "But I understand risk." Rose's fingers curled lightly in her lap. "People with unusual gifts draw attention," Kael continued. "Some of it will be curiosity. Some of it will be fear." She finally looked up. His eyes were steady. There was no open malice there, only intention. "Darius will protect you," Kael said, as if stating a weather pattern. "Alaric will charm you into believing the world is softer than it is." Rose's jaw tightened at that, just a fraction. "And you," Kael added, voice gentler now, "will keep choosing everyone but yourself until it costs you." Rose's throat went tight. Because it was accurate. Because it was the sort of accuracy that didn't feel like care, it felt like possession. Kael rose smoothly, dusting his gloves as if the conversation had never sharpened. "You should learn to defend yourself," he said. "Not because you're weak, because you're valuable." There it was. The word landed wrong, not because she didn't understand it, because she understood it too well. Rose kept her voice even.
"Is that why you're here?"
Kael didn't flinch. "I'm here because you're going to the capital," he said, and the way he said capital made it sound like a blade being slid from a sheath. "And the capital is not kind." He tilted his head slightly. "Come with me," he said. "A short lesson. Nothing formal, just enough that if you ever sense danger too late, you won't be helpless." Rose didn't move. The earth beneath her hummed, picking up the faint shift in his weight, how he was ready for refusal. Ready to press, ready to pivot. Rose inhaled slowly. She thought of the children, of small hands gripping hers in the dark, of the way she had moved for Darius's men without thinking. Because pain was pain, and someone had to answer it. She had chosen again. Not herself, not safety, people. And now she felt something else beneath that old instinct, a quieter instinct. A newer one, awareness. Rose rose. She brushed ash from her palms and met Kael's gaze with calm so honest it almost looked like surrender.
Thank you, she said softly. I'd like that.
Kael blinked once, just once. A crack in the mask, surprise quickly sealed. Good, he said, voice smoothing back into control. Then follow. Rose stepped after him, barefoot, deliberate, listening not to his words, but to the ground beneath them. The clearing beyond camp still held morning mist like breath, trapped between the trees. Pale light filtered down in thin bands, catching on spiderwebs and dew. The grass was damp, the soil firm. The world felt quiet, not peaceful. Quiet like an animal holding still. Kael stopped in the center and drew a practice blade from a bundle, near a training post. Wooden, worn smooth by countless hands. He tossed it lightly. Rose caught it without fumbling. He noticed. His eyes sharpened again. Stance, he said. Rose hesitated.
I don't...
You do, Kael replied simply. Everyone has one. Even if it's only how they brace for a blow. Rose's grip tightened on the wooden hilt. She shifted her feet, not like a soldier, like someone who had learned how to avoid being hit in narrow hallways. Kael's gaze flicked over her with quick appraisal. Better than I expected, he murmured. Rose didn't respond. Kael circled her slowly. Don't close your eyes, he said. And don't look at my blade. Look at my shoulders, my hips where I commit. Rose watched, but she also listened. The earth told her when he shifted his weight before his body finished deciding. The smallest warning, a whisper of movement. Kael lunged, not fast enough to wound, but fast enough to test. Rose stepped aside. Not clumsy, not panicked, just gone. Kael halted, turning his head slightly. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Luck, he said.
Rose's voice was calm. No.
He tried again. A feint, a sweep meant to catch her off balance. Rose ducked, her cloak brushing wet grass, and pivoted out of reach. The blade cut air. Kael's breathing stayed controlled, but his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He came again, faster now. Thrust, sweep, feint. Rose moved like she wasn't fighting him at all. Like she was avoiding the shape of his intention. Somewhere behind the trees, a horse snorted. Voices shifted. The camp had noticed. Alaric stood at the edge of the clearing, arms crossed, trying and failing not to look entertained. Darius was there too, a few paces behind him, silent, watching. Kael heard them. Rose felt it in the way the ground changed under his feet, how his weight grew sharper, more demanding, not to hurt her, to win. Kael's blade snapped forward again, aimed closer this time, near enough to make her feel the wind of it. Rose stepped back, then forward, inside his guard. Her wooden blade lifted instinctively and tapped his shoulder. Clean, simple, final. The clearing went still. Even Alaric's grin faltered, replaced by quiet disbelief. Kael froze for a heartbeat. His eyes flicked toward the watching men. Then back to Rose. Something moved behind his gaze. Not rage, not yet. Control reasserting itself. He exhaled slowly and lowered his blade first. Well, he said, voice even. You learn quickly. Rose didn't smile.
I don't think you came to teach me, she said gently.
Kael's mouth curved. This is teaching, he replied. Just not the kind you're used to. Rose's eyes stayed on him, calm, unmoved.
And what kind is that?
Kael stepped closer, just enough that the air between them tightened. The kind that keeps you alive, he said softly. Rose held his gaze. Then, just as softly,
I've been keeping myself alive for a long time, Commander.
Kael's eyes narrowed the slightest fraction. Rose continued before he could decide how to answer.
But thank you, she said.
And the sincerity in her voice was so honest, it didn't sound like flattery.
For trying.
Kael stared at her. The words didn't land where he intended them to. He had offered steel like a hook. She had taken it like a gift, and gifts were difficult to weaponize without revealing the hand that sharpened them. Kael stepped back. Enough for today, he said crisply. We ride soon. Rose nodded once and handed the wooden blade back without ceremony. As she turned, she caught Darius's eyes across the mist. He didn't look pleased. He didn't look angry. He looked alert, like a man watching a storm decide which direction to move. Alaric approached Rose first, voice low. You just made him work for that, he murmured. Rose tilted her head.
For what?
For control, Alaric said simply. His smile was faint, but his eyes weren't joking. Rose's gaze drifted back toward Kael, already walking away like nothing had happened. She didn't feel victorious. She felt seen, and she wasn't sure whether that was safety or danger. Darius stepped closer. "Rose," he said quietly. She turned to him. He paused, as if choosing the correct words mattered. "It was wise to accept training," he said, "and wiser not to trust the reason it was offered." Rose's throat tightened.
You don't trust him, she said.
Darius didn't deny it. "I trust what he is," he replied. "And I trust what men like that do when they realize something doesn't bend the way they expected." Rose looked down at her bare feet, damp with morning, grounded in soil that never lied. Then she looked up again.
I don't want to make enemies, she said softly.
Darius's gaze held hers. "Sometimes," he said, "you don't get to choose." By mid-morning, the camp was packing. Horses were saddled, straps pulled tight, bedrolls vanished into neat bundles. Men moved with the quiet efficiency of those who knew the road ahead would not be kind. Rose moved among them carefully, not as a prisoner, not as a prize, but still watched, still measured, still weighed. She adjusted the clasp of her cloak near the supply cart and felt the ground shift beneath approaching steps. Alaric. He held out a small bundle wrapped in plain cloth. Rose blinked.
What is that?
"Insurance," he said lightly. "Or something close." She unwrapped it just enough to see leather, soft soles, thin, flexible. Boots made for silence, not spectacle. Her fingers stilled. "You don't have to wear them," Alaric added quickly. "But you should have them. Just in case, just in case." No one had ever given her a future before. She accepted them slowly.
Thank you.
He flashed that easy grin again, though something gentler sat beneath it. "Don't mention it," he murmured. "I have a reputation to maintain." A breath of laughter escaped her before she could stop it. It startled her. The sound felt new. The earth beneath her hummed, not with warning this time, but with motion, with departure, with inevitability. Across the clearing, Kael stood near the horses, speaking to one of the scouts, calm, composed, no sign of the earlier exchange. But Rose could feel him, not restless, not pressing, patient, watching, waiting. She shifted the bundle against her chest and looked toward the line forming. Along the forest road, the capital lay ahead. Stone towers, closed gates, rooms where names were recorded in ink that did not forget. Whatever waited there would not care how kind she was. It would care what she could be used for. Rose inhaled slowly. She had been kind when it was dangerous. She had been kind when it cost her. She had been kind when no one was watching. Not because it was safe, because it was hers. The column began to move. Hooves pressed into damp soil. Wheels cut shallow tracks into earth that remembered everything. Rose stepped forward with them, barefoot, listening. And beneath the rhythm of travel, beneath steel and leather and measured command, the ground hummed. Not warning, not peace, something older than both, like it already knew the shape of what was coming. And somewhere within that hum, something answered, waiting.